In this video, we're going to talk about the loss of some of our freedoms, and we're going to start with the religious freedoms, but then we're going to cover another freedom that you might not even be thinking about. So stick with me and I'll be back in a minute. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles. Sorry I kind of was MIA for a couple days, but I had a birthday and then it was Easter and I just wanted to kind of take it easy. So anyway, I'm back with this because I've got a lot of things that I think you're going to be interested in seeing. Wow, lots of stuff has been going on, especially with Easter, right? Well, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I wanted to start out with this article that I found because I think it's very important. Check this out. Federal data, 16.4 million mail-in ballots went missing in 2016-2018 elections. Yeah, you need to read this one. Remember, I put all the links down below in the description. So you have to click like a little triangle if you're on a mobile device, and that'll pop open the description. If you're on a regular web browser, like on your laptop, then you click on the show more and it'll open that up. So that's where they'll be. But yeah, you've got to read this one because, wow, this is very impactful. And when you're looking at this, talk about mail-in voter fraud, something went on because there were all of these, like this one says 42.4 million ballots were mailed to register voters in the 2018 election. Of those mailed, more than 1 million were undeliverable. More than 430,000 were rejected and nearly 10.5 million went missing. Yeah, but oh no, no voter fraud. Come on, folks. Mail-in is really a dangerous thing. When we're doing this, this is the problem right here. And so 16 million, that's a chunk of people, really important. So anyway, I'll leave the link to this down below because there's some significant data in here you need to be aware of. Now, this right here is also not really doing with what we're talking about, but it is very important. If you follow the 17th letter of the alphabet, you probably already have this bookmarked to watch or you've already watched it. It is excellent, and it does tell you some of the things that are going on and things that we might be aware of. So it's a good time for people that might not be clued in on everything that's going on behind the scenes. This is an excellent video because these people are like witnesses to some of this stuff, and they've been doing a lot of research, especially Liz Crokin, and you need to look into this. It is something that should not be dismissed as a debunked conspiracy theory because it's just like we've talked about in the past. They say it's been debunked, but it never has been, and nobody is willing to address the issues that it raises. So I'm going to leave the link to this down below too. It's 1 hour and 17 minutes. 17. So, yeah, you need to watch this if you haven't. And I just refreshed the page because I noticed I hadn't, and it went from 1.3 million to 2.6. So it's had a lot of views, but it needs to have, oh, so many more across the entire world, because this is not just limited to the United States. This is going on everywhere in the world. It's worldwide. So I will leave the link to that. And then we need to start on this because of the censorship and the freedoms that we're losing. This is a commentary from the Western Journal. FCC smacks down liberal media organizations' attempt to censor Trump. Yeah, in his briefings. Wow, this is really good. I mean, you need to know about this if you haven't because, of course, when it comes to infringements on American freedom that liberals have launched during the coronavirus crisis, lockdowns are the least of it. It's true that across the country, governors have ginned up powers to limit the freedoms of assembly and religion, which we're going to talk about, guaranteed by the First Amendment. Those are the battles that are not only being fought on the ground in real time, but are also almost certainly destined for court cases where, once the fog of war lifts, reason and American values will win out. But more insidious are the left's attempts to use the national emergency to enshrine the kind of authoritarian limitations on American freedom that leftists have always instituted in every country unfortunate enough to fall under socialist doctrines. And a petition smacked down by the FCC this week is a case in point. So there was this group named Free Press. Yeah, ironically speaking, right? So they were Free Press, and they put in this petition saying, you shouldn't allow Trump or any of these media outlets to broadcast his briefings because they're misinformation. They have aired hoaxes and false or misleading information about COVID-19. I thought this was kind of funny because this is their wording here. They wanted the FCC to investigate any broadcaster that has, quote, aired hoaxes and false or misleading information about COVID-19 and immediately issue an emergency policy statement or enforcement guidance recommending that broadcasters prominently disclose when information they air is false or scientifically suspect. Well, yeah, so I'm all for that if it's CNN and MSNBC and NBC and ABC and CBS, because they're the ones that are out there spreading false information. They're saying, ooh, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work and you shouldn't be promoting it. It's dangerous. And it's like, no, it's not. And, we have a lot of doctors that will say it is not a dangerous drug. When it's used in the appropriate doses, there's not a problem. And even these people who have been on it for a long time, it's one of the things that helps the people with lupus to feel better, and it's helped with their illness and no side effects. But yet the media is trying to say it's dangerous, and Trump should be, that one lady from Ohio said she wanted to have him tried in the International Court for Crimes Against Humanity. I mean, this is what they're saying. Those people are the ones that are putting out misinformation. And in my opinion, I think sometimes it's disinformation. Now, if you don't know the difference between the two, misinformation is where you put out something that ends up being false, or you didn't know it was false, but you put it out there. Disinformation is where you knew it was false and you put it out there anyway. So like I said, I think a lot of them could be guilty of disinformation. But hey, I'm all for an investigation. Let's put an investigation. But the problem is they think that it's going to apply to Trump. Well, here's the response. And this came out on April 6th to the lawyer for the Free Press. It kills me that they call themselves Free Press. Free Press, but we don't want anybody who says anything different than what we believe to have a voice. Free Press has filed under Section 1.41 of the Federal Communication Commission's rules an emergency petition requesting an investigation into broadcasters that have aired the President of the United States statements and press conferences regarding the novel coronavirus and related commentary by other on-air personalities. And that would be Rush and Mark Levin and Hannity. And yeah, that's who they're talking about there, other on-air personalities. I'm pretty sure on that. The petition claims that the president and various commentators have made false statements regarding COVID-19, which commission licensees have broadcast to the public, and which allegedly have caused or will cause substantial public harm. Free Press asked the commission under its Section 309 Public Interest Authority and its rules prohibiting broadcast hoaxes to investigate these broadcasts and adopt emergency enforcement guidance, quote, recommending that broadcasters prominently disclose when information they air is false or scientifically suspect. Oh my goodness, they just are control freaks. But here's the response from the FCC. We deny Free Press's petition. For the reasons explained below, the petition misconstrues the Commission's rules and seeks remedies that would dangerously curtail the freedom of the press embodied in the First Amendment. I just think it's kind of fun. You can go ahead and read the rest of it. It's 5 pages long, but basically it's just saying y'all don't have any standing and it's not gonna happen. It was great. That is something well worth reading and, being aware of, because sometimes the FCC, you wonder what's going on over there, but hey, that was a great ruling and they're not even going to give them the time of day on it. So yay for them. And if you want to talk about misinformation, how about the WHO, right? Because look at this. They lied and created a global panic. Second extensive study finds coronavirus mortality rate is what? 0.4%, not 3.4%, similar to seasonal flu. I've been saying this. This was a German study, found that around 15% of the population had the coronavirus antibodies and were infected at some point without knowing it. I'm kind of wondering, around here, we had something this past fall that caused people to, kind of feel bad and everything, but then they started feeling better, but they had a cough, a really bad cough for maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes, and it was hard to get rid of that. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe that was it, that, was like a mild version of it. I don't know. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying maybe that was the start of it. I don't know for sure, but you got to kind of wonder. Now some are saying that there were cases in California, like in November or something. I don't know, but it's kind of hard to track down. I understand that. But this right here in this study, using this data, the researchers concluded that the coronavirus mortality rate was 0.37%. So there you have it. And I think that is something that we need to get out there, because that's what this German study showed. And, the WHO is not telling us the truth. If the free press wants to complain about somebody putting out lies, maybe they ought to start with the WHO. Anyway, this is from a French website. And so I know you can't read French, but you can understand numbers. And that's kind of what this number thing is. And I wanted to show you this to you because I find it stunning. This is from the South China Morning Post. Okay. And these were the statistics that came from it. Here's the country, the number of cases, the number of deceased. And this is probably a day old, because I don't know that I've refreshed this one. I had it up, and I was going to do a video for Saturday evening, and then that kind of got postponed. Here's what I was doing. I was trying to set things up for a live stream on Saturday night. It didn't work. I'm having trouble with the sound issue. The recording that I did, the microphone sounded horrible. And it's my microphone I'm using right now, so I'm not sure where the glitch is. I'm sure it's just a setting I got to tweak. And I will, somewhere along the line. But I was kind of hoping for that, because Saturday was my birthday, and I was going to just kind of hang out with y'all, but that didn't work. So anyway, and the population, and then this is the mortality per million inhabitants. And if you don't know, in Europe, sometimes they use commas where we use periods in numbers, and vice versa. So just be aware that's 56.3 there. But see, that's where the United States is. And we had 18,000 deceased at this point. Now, if you go down and you see some of the others, you have Spain and Italy and France and Germany, and but then you get down to mainland China. Look at this, 3,336 deceased. The mortality for the United States per 1 million inhabitants, 56.3, which you need to kind of keep in mind, because if you can compare it like that, then we see that even though Spain had less people die, it was a lot more of their population. It was very significant. And the United States, when you put them in that order, the United States really is not very high. It's pretty far down on the list. But China, 2.4%. Tell me that's true. Does anybody believe that? They only had 3,000 people die. This is a bunch of hooey. I'm sorry. I don't believe that statistic for 1 minute. But then again, it comes from South China Morning Post. So what do we expect? But I wanted to show you that because, if that free press is going to complain about hoaxes and lies and false information, maybe they ought to go after China. Because I think China's lying big time on this number. Oh, yeah. And then I wanted to show you this because Bill Gates is funding a study for hydroxychloroquine. And guess what? They're using ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, for the placebo, and people with symptoms are excluded. So exactly what are they trying to figure out here? If people that don't have the symptoms are excluded, anyway. I think this is highly suspect. I'll leave it here for you, and you can click on this and actually see the clinical trial. And if you recall, Zach Voorhees is the one who gave us a bunch of Google documents, like 9,000 pages worth of Google documents. It kind of has his pulse on things. Now, let's talk a little bit about our freedoms, because this is definitely a freedom that's trying to be curbed, besides our freedom of speech, evidently, and the freedom for our president to actually be covered in his briefings with the regular media, or at least CNN. I mean, CNN and MSNBC, they're like news channels. So if you are a news station like CNN, what else do you have to do? It's news. You got to fill all your programming. You got 24 hours to fill every day. Why not put that on there? That's 2 hours less you have to fill. Oh, crazy, crazy. But anyway, I'm sure most of you heard that the Supreme Court in Kansas ruled unanimously that, yes, they could prohibit the churches, the church services and funerals, and that it remains in effect. Now, I'm not very happy either with the Indiana governor, because he had some pretty stringent things going on for Easter Sunday. But it's getting worse. And Kentucky, I'm sure you know that Kentucky's governor tried to do the same thing. But Kentucky said, no, it's stunning and unconstitutional. So there was a restraining order against it. And they evidently were not allowed to record license plates of Easter churchgoers. But look at this. Guess what they did do? They put nails in the road. I mean, really, seriously. A Kentucky church defied coronavirus lockdown orders to hold a packed Easter Sunday service despite a heavy police presence and even nails blocking the parking lots. Can you believe it? Nails! I mean, serious, folks. And then they were warning them that they would record their car plates to force them into 14-day quarantines. So I'm not sure what happened here, because I thought there was supposed to be a restraining order on it, but evidently that did not happen. And so here we go. What's going on with our country? I am stunned, really, that this is our country, and this is the point that we're at, where churches are treated so cavalierly. And then this one says, yep, that it did happen. Easter churchgoers defiant after Kentucky troopers write down their license plate numbers. And here they were. That's what happened. And this is what is so crazy, that people are just being treated so badly. It's Easter. It's not like it was just another Sunday. It was Easter. And I understand that you can do the live streams. You know, my church did a live stream. So, you know, we got to watch the pastor. But still, it just is crazy what's happening in our country when it comes to religious liberty. And here's a Charlie Kirk post where he said, every car in a church parking lot received a mandatory self-quarantine order under threat of further enforcement just for worshiping Jesus on Easter. And some of them were even they had problems with the cars. Like here in Indiana, if you had a drive-in, which is what several churches did, you had to have a space in between each car, so you couldn't park them in spaces next to each other. You had to have one space empty in between. There were like several things that were very strict. And it's like, really? What is going on, Holcomb? I'm not happy with that. Definitely overreach. But anyway, so I'll leave this. You can watch the video if you want to. And these guys don't even have, they don't have masks. They don't have gloves, nothing. But they're going around there yelling at everybody else. And I got to tell you, even over in our park, they posted signs, not allowing people to play basketball, which I can almost understand, because you're close to each other. But tennis? How is that a problem? When you're playing tennis, you're like more than 6 feet away from somebody, that's for sure. It's not like there's body contact in tennis. So I have no idea. When I saw that posted on the tennis courts, I was like, really? Come on. Because people have been playing tennis a lot on the nice days, which is good. We need to get out. We need to get a breath of fresh air, right? But there are a lot of churches that figured out ways to kind of get around things. Now, I had an opportunity this morning, well, it actually was afternoon for me, that I watched this one from Pastor David Jeremiah. He used to be in Indiana, and I knew somebody who used to go to his church, so I'd been there and I saw him a lot of times. And this was really cleverly done, the way that they did all this, because they had, people on stage. They had this brass ensemble that played, I'm trying to get pictures of it, a brass ensemble that played, and it's like, this is where you come in the church, and they had them, that's where they were, and see, they're all separated, so it's nice. And then they had singers on the stage, of course, so there were, the singers up there, get rid of that. Okay, and they were all spaced away from each other. Let me do this so I can play it a little bit. Okay. And then, see, they're all spaced away from each other. And then they had Pastor Jeremiah who spoke. And then they had, wow, we're getting a lot of those. Then they had the choir. And I got to show you the choir here. Yeah, look at this. This is how the choir sang. They were all at home. And they sang a song together. See? They're all at home. And they had 2 screens like this, so there were a big bunch of them. And it was really cleverly done. So I sat there going, that is so cool. And it sounded beautiful. So this was really encouraging, and I enjoyed that. And like I said, this is getting churches to think outside the box. And possibly, this is a possible good thing that's coming out of it, is that now people that may not have wanted to go to a regular church, they might actually start looking into some of these online churches, because more and more churches are starting to live stream their services. So maybe more and more people will at least get connected in with the teaching part. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I really do think that in churches we need to be connected together. So I think actually going to a church, it's important, and to get to know people there, because I think one of the most important things of being a member of a church is serving others. And so I really think that that's an important thing. And one of the things they did here, and I'm not going to be able to find it, I'm sure, but they did a service project where, and of course, again, I'm not finding it, but they did a service project where they had 1,000 people, 1,000 families that they fed, and they had the cars all lined up. The people were handed a box of food and everything, so they had it all ready to go. They worked with Feed the Children, and it was amazing, because Feed the Children had food that they would normally have shipped out, but they couldn't, because of all, the restrictions and everything. So they ended up buying it from the Feed the Children and then using it to give to people there in their neighborhood. And they fed over 1,000 families. I thought that was wonderful, because that's what churches should be doing right there, is giving to others. So this was very inspirational to me. And this was also kind of inspirational here, and this is from the Associated Press. All of these people at the same time, and I don't know, it was in New York City, I believe. Christians from more than 30 churches in the New York City area just came together, and they sang "Christ the Lord is risen today," and they show all these people standing close to each other, but even if they, social distancing close like that. But yeah, so that was something that, Christians came out and did. As I said, it's caused us to be a little more creative in our worship. And that's a good thing, because sometimes we get complacent, and we need to be reminded just how important our worship time is, and that our religious freedom is a precious thing, and we cannot let it be taken from us. So I hope that Barr is going to be looking into the Kentucky thing and the Kansas thing and kind of crazy stuff going on. Well, speaking of liberties that we're having taken from us, some of you know these people. They are called the Big Family Homestead, and Brad and Krista here, and I've followed them for quite a while. I was looking at this and wow, they've got 215,000 subscribers. Gee, I think I started following them when they were 40,000. So it's been a little while. But they're entertaining, and they also bring up some very good points. And one of the things that they brought up was the issue with milk, because they live in Wisconsin, and evidently, Wisconsin's very well known for cows and for dairy products. But the problem they're having right now is they're pouring milk out just down the drain because they can't get it to market. And you're seeing all these things in your supermarket that say limit quantities. Why? Why is it? Because they can't get the milk to the market. And, they had this was their one from today. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But then I started looking into it and I thought, this is not just an isolated thing. Because here we have all these people, like with David Jeremiah's church, they were giving food to people who needed it because they don't have the money from the government. They are unemployed. They don't have a paycheck coming in. They needed food. So that's what the church was doing. But it's worse than that, because here we have people who need food, and yet our largest farms are just destroying it. Millions of pounds of fresh goods because they can't get them to market on time. Because, when you've got produce, these are onions, by the way, mounds of onions just ready to be destroyed because they can't get them to market in a timely fashion. And I think this is something that we need to be very well aware of, because although I know we're focused on our religious freedoms, I know we're focused on being able to assemble and, just regular jobs and all this, this is very important for all of us, because we all eat food. We need food. Without food, we don't exist. And so this should capture all of us. Well, here's a video, and this is by Ice Age Farmer. And I don't know him other than this video, but wow, this video is excellent. And he said farmers were told to quit farming. So he goes through here. Meat processing plants suspend operations after workers fall ill. You have dairy farms, again, that they're just pouring the milk out because they don't have any way to market it. And, that's kind of sad. The really bad thing, and he was talking about this somewhere, he also quotes this guy right here. He does a little clip of him who is telling more about it. And farmers dumping milk, we've never been asked to do this. And then he had this document right here. Let's see if it'll come up. Okay, this document right here, which was sent to a bunch of people in a co-op. And it basically says the board of directors has approved the following program to encourage members to quit dairy farming by paying the equity in the cooperative for the years 2010 to 2019, provided the following criteria is met by the member. Must not sell their cows to an existing member. They must provide proof of where the cows went. So they have to sell their cows. Now, again, that might not sound bad to some of you, but this is concerning to me, because as he talks about near the end, Bill Gates has been soaking up a bunch of stuff having to do with agriculture, including seeds, etc., etc., and especially in regards to Africa. And in my opinion, and it kind of is what I think he's alluding to here, I foresee a time coming where they just cut you off. I mean, right now, we're not doing badly because the food supply is still going on, kind of. And there's still, when you go to the market, there is food. But, all the restaurants aren't ordering any food, and the schools aren't buying the supplies that they normally do. Although here in our town, they are still giving out free lunches to the kids that are free lunch. But, there's just not as much food being consumed by those restaurants and by the schools. And so that's, it's put us in a position where we have a surplus right now that can't get to market in time to be sellable. And this is something we all should be worried about. And like I said, imagine what would happen if all of a sudden, Bill Gates has control of these things, and he just says, we're just going to shut off that supply valve. Think about it, okay? When I sat down to write my novels, and the first novel I wrote, I really was starting to work on it in 2013. I know it's been a long time ago, and I'm still waiting on my editor to get back with me, so I'm hoping it'll be soon on that. But anyway, when I started coming up with all of these ideas for my novel series, I started thinking, okay, if you have an elite group of people, this was pre-17th letter of the alphabet days, guys. I said, what would happen? How would they take over the world? And each of my novels addresses one of those tactics that they would have to implement in order to take over the world. And the reason I did it like that is because I wanted to open up the door so people could start conversations about such things, because there's a lot of truth in my novels. So sometimes it's easier for people to read if it's in a novel than if it's, just something that they're being told. So anyway, I really want you to watch this video. It's, 15 minutes long? Really excellent. I think that you'll appreciate what he has to say about Gates at the end especially. So he did a good job, and like I said, great video there, full of a lot of content. But I want to leave you with a couple of upbeat things, because it's not all doom and gloom. There are some good things happening. I saw this in Texas Governor Abbott to issue executive order on reopening businesses. Now, he's not saying that they're all going to open all at once, but this is a good positive sign, because we've got to get this done. It does us no good to save our lives if we have no life to get back to, So we really need to make sure that we keep our economy going, and especially since that's what President Trump was running on, we need him in the White House. And so we need this economy to recover, not just for his sake, but for our sake, the American people, because this has been, in my opinion, a concerted effort to take us down. And I think we need to make sure that we don't let it get to us. And the only way that's going to happen is if we start opening back up. So anyway, I wanted to share this with you as the last thing. Very interesting. This lady spoke at the Faith and Freedom Coalition, and this was in 2019. She posted this on June 28th, 2019. Well, President Trump just, I think it was on the 12th, on Easter, he just retweeted this. But you need to listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all know the story about the Good Samaritan, but what you don't know is I was that forgotten person on the side of the road, the victim of medical error, the number 3 cause of death under the previous administration, and left to die of cancer. First, the medical establishment, they came by and they saw me there, so they wrote prescriptions for opioids and they walked on. Next, the political establishment, they saw me there. And they stopped just long enough to come over and tell me how to die, how to speed up my death so I could somehow die with dignity. But then an outsider, my Good Samaritan, President Donald J. Trump, he saw me there and he didn't walk by. He stopped. And for every single one of us, he gave up his own quality of life so we could live and work and fight with dignity, because he believes in survival of the fighters, not the fittest. And so, Mr. President, I have to say you have made a lot of promises to us, and you have kept every one of them. So now we're going to make you this promise. Just as you fought for us, forgotten America will never forget how you saw us on the side of the road, and you walked over and you picked us up and you made us great again. And now we're going to fight for you, Mr. President. God bless you.
If you know the story of the Good Samaritan, that was where the man was walking down the road. He got beat up by a bunch of highway robbers, and he was left for dead alongside the road. And you had the various people, like the priests and the Pharisees, walking by him, but they wouldn't touch him and they wouldn't help him. Well, along comes a guy that wasn't necessarily thought of highly. He was from Samaria, and Samaria in those days, the Jews kind of looked down their nose at Samaritans. And I think a lot of people look down their nose at Donald Trump, not those of us who voted for him, of course, but the ones who have listened to the left-wing media. But the Samaritan was the one who took this man and he put him in an inn and he paid for him to be there and to be taken care of. And so he made sure that that man was well taken care of. This is what she says President Trump did for her. It's a wonderful story, needs to be shared a lot. She lays it all out there, and she had all the others just walking by her and leaving her to die, but not President Trump. You know, when he enacted that right to try, that legislation was very powerful, and we need to make sure people understand just how powerful it was. Anyway, so that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.